Yontif. And welcome to all of those who are joining us as far away as Afghanistan, and the Middle East, Russia, and New York, and Michigan, and Georgia, I believe, right here in San Diego. Welcome to Yontif and Easy Fast to all of you. I want to give a shout out, if you will, a thank you. If you hadn't been here on Rosh Hashanah, we have a brand new choir director, Dr. Stanley Wicks, and we are so blessed. Thank you so much, along with, go ahead, Tracy James, as always, our magnificent choir, and our cantor. I've got to tell you, for those of you who left right after Rosh Hashanah morning service or contemporary services, you weren't here for the children's service. We were going through the children's service and we got up to the Kiddush, and at least I believe it was the Kiddush, maybe it was Shachianu or something along the shofar. All right, so it was the blessing over the, it was a blessing. We got up to the blessing, and the cantor began and got through about 4 words, and it stopped. And tried again. Got through 4 words and stopped. There was nothing coming out. Had completely lost her voice. Well, the long and the short of it is, she read the blessing. It worked out well, but for the last 10 days, she has been sick as a dog, has been under incredible amounts of antibiotics, with all kinds of things going on, and yet tonight, here she is leading us in worship as if nothing were wrong in the world. It is, it's a little miraculous, but I think also truly, as I said on second day, a testament to her love of our creation, of our congregation, and her commitment to the calling of being a cantor. And so, we pray that you will continue to hold out, that you will ultimately heal fully, and we thank you. A 50-year-old woman had a heart attack, and she was taken to the hospital. And while on the operating table, she had a near-death experience. Seeing God, she asked, "Is my time up?" God replied, "No. You have another 43 years, 2 months, and 8 days of life to go." So, upon recovery, the woman decided to stay in the hospital and have a facelift, a little liposuction and other augmentations, and a tummy tuck. She even had someone come in and change her hair color and brighten her teeth. Since she had so much more time to live, she figured she might as well make the most of it. After her last operation and she was healed, she was released from the hospital. While crossing the street on her way home, she was tragically killed by a speeding car. Arriving in front of God, she demanded, "I thought you said I had another 43 years. Why didn't you pull me out from the path of the car?" Said God to the most disquieted soul, "I didn't recognize you." One day, an expert in time management was speaking to a group of business students, and to drive home a point, he used an illustration. As he stood in front of the group of high-powered overachievers, he said, "Okay, it's time for a quiz." He pulled out a 1-gallon wide mouth glass jar and he set it on the table in front of him. And he also produced about a dozen or so fist-sized stones and carefully placed them one at a time into the jar. When the jar was filled to the top and no more stones would fit inside, he asked, "Who would say that this jar is full?" And everyone in the class yelled, "Yes, it's filled." The time management expert replied, "Really?" And then he reached under the table and he pulled out a bucket of gravel. He dumped some of the gravel in the jar and he shook the jar, causing the pieces of the gravel to work themselves down in the spaces between the rocks. He then asked the group once more, "Now, is the jar full?" By this time, the class was obviously on to him. "Probably not," one of them answered. "Good," he replied. He reached under the table and this time he brought out a bucket of sand. And he started dumping the sand into the jar, and it went into all the spaces left between the rocks and the gravel. And once more he asked the question, "Is now the jar full?" "No," the class shouted. "Once again, good," he said. And then he grabbed a pitcher of water, and he poured that into the jar until it was filled to the brim. Then he looked at the class and he asked, "What is the point of this illustration?" Now, one eager student raised his hand and said, "The point is that no matter how full your schedule is, if you really try hard, you can always fit some more things in." "Wrong," the speaker replied. "That's not the point at all. The point is to teach us that if we do not put the large stones in first, we'll never get them in at all." Among the questions we must ponder tonight are not only what are the large stones in our lives, the people and the values most precious to us, but also in leaving them for later or worse for last, what have we allowed to take up the space in our lives, leaving little, if any, room for what we claim is most important? With a 43-year jar of life before her, the lady with the near-death experience filled it with the most trivial of small things, such that she had no room left for what really mattered. Thankfulness for life, a new appreciation for its blessings, should have been filling her days with family, good works, kindness, and love, trusting that the other stuff might have fit in if she had gone about it correctly. But alas, she didn't, and life slipped away before she could turn around. And so let us ask, what does really count? What are our true priorities? In the jar we place upon the table from this year past, how many are inside and how many never made it in? And if they didn't make it in, what filled their space instead? When I sit with soon-to-be married couples, one of the topics we cover is time management. I like to refer to it as soul management. I ask about the time that they spend together. Do this in your own minds, even if you've been married for ages. I ask about the time they spend together. I then ask them to separate out the time they spend together attending to tasks or sleeping from the time they spend together just simply reveling in each other's company. Lastly, I ask them to compare that time in relationship to all the time there is to spend in a week. The revelation, almost universally, is that the time they spend together simply for the sake of being together with no ulterior motive is but a fraction of the time available to them. Considering that they each represent the most important individual in each other's life, considering that every aspiration and dream ahead of them will be launched upon the relationship they nurture and maintain, it always seems surprising surprisingly upside down, like putting in the water before the stones. But I imagine it is like that with most of us. There are the usual culprits that fill our days, like chores and bills and work, chauffeur service, medical appointments, meetings and meetings and meetings. But these only fill the vessel that is our 24-hour day. But there's another type of vessel that is directly related, directly influenced by our success or our failure in ordering our priorities properly. And it is the vessel of our soul. Hence, soul management. Rather than items to fill a calendar, the vessel of our soul is either polished or shattered. When what we do is nurturing, like being with our loved ones, taking time for ourselves, or volunteering in the service of others, the effects of what we do are equally nurturing upon that vessel. And when what we do falls under the category of what Kohelet, or aka Ecclesiastes, would call vanities, like liposuction, our vessel becomes covered in dark and sticky brine, through which little is able to shine. It's sort of like a cut crystal vase. If a vase is left on the shelf, with nothing ever to fill it, it soon begins to collect dust. Soon brine begins to cover the surface. Yet if it is in a home where there is never the warmth of company, there is never a need to wash it. And after some years, it's hard to see the luminous beauty that once shone forth when it was first unwrapped. A crystal vase, however, that is often filled with the joy of fresh-cut flowers, thus often washed, and is often dusted whenever company is coming, is a vase that sparkles, is a vase that shines with a light that almost emanates from within. Every facet of its artistry and every color of the spectrum illuminate the entirety of the space around it. It is our choice to let our jobs, our bills, our drive for possessions, our need to be right, to get in the last word, to fill the vessel of our daily calendar lives. But consequently, it is our choice to let worry, anxiety, guilt, frustration, pain, hurt, distance, loneliness coat the vessel of our soul. A man came home from work late, again, tired and irritated to find his 5-year-old son waiting for him at the door. "Dad, may I ask you a question?" "Yeah, sure. What is it?" replied the man. "Dad, how much money do you make an hour?" "It's none of your business." "And what makes you ask a question like that?" the man said angrily. "Just want to know. So tell me, please, how much do you make an hour?" "You must know I make $20 an hour." "Oh." Looking up, he said, "Daddy, may I borrow $10, please?" The father was furious. "If the only reason you wanted to know how much money I make is just so you can borrow some to buy some silly toy or some other nonsense, then you march yourself right up to your room and you go to bed. And while you're there, think about how selfish you are being. I'm working hard every single day, and the last thing I need is for you to come to me at the end of the day and ask for money." The little boy quietly went to his room. He shut the door. The man sat down and started to get even angrier about his son's question. "How dare he ask about how much money I make only to get some more money?" But after an hour or or so, the man had calmed down and started to think that perhaps maybe he was a little too hard on his son. Maybe there was something that he really did need to buy with that $10, and I guess after all, he didn't ask for money very often. So the man went to the door of his son's room, and he opened the door, and he asked, "Are you asleep?" "No, Dad, I'm awake." "I've been thinking. Maybe I was too hard on you before. It's been a long day. I took out my frustrations on you. Here's that $10 you want." The little boy sat straight up, beaming. "Thank you," he yelled. And reaching under his pillow, he pulled out some more crumpled up bills. The father, seeing that the boy already had some money, started to get angry all over again. The little boy slowly counted out his money, then looked up at his dad. "Why did you want money if you already had some?" His father looked at him and said. "Because I didn't have enough, but I do now. Daddy, I have $20 now. Will you play with me for an hour?" The man worked hard, long hours. Perhaps he had to, perhaps he thought he had to. Assuredly, at $20 an hour, he had bills and other demands upon his time and his strength. His day, his week were filled with priorities, hardly trivialities, but were they what mattered most? Or at least balanced with what matters most? If all that filled his day and night meant that his son would no longer be upon the morning's dawn, would he not give it all up in a heart's beat? His job, the house, his savings, the vacation, his car, the social climb? Had he taken the time to call his wife to spend the lunch hour with her, might he not have had a little less dirt and a little less grime around that vessel, a little more love to cradle his soul so as to respond more kindly to his son? Had time with his son been more a priority in the first place, would he need to be bribed for more? He, like we, have a choice. He put the ingredients in his jar upside down. The vessel of his soul did not allow his heart to shine. Circumstances or people can take away our material possessions. They can take away our money and they can take away our health, but no one can ever take away our priorities, and most importantly, our choice to place them in the order we choose. This time a little girl. She had been shopping with her mom. She must have been all of 6 years old. She was a beautiful, red-haired, freckle-faced vision of innocence. It was pouring outside. They had just come out from the store, and the rain was the kind of rain that only Southern California gets. It gushes down over the top of rain gutters so much in a hurry to hit the ground that it has no time to flow down the spout. And all the rest of the folks who had come out of the store and were gathered outside just stood there in awe, staring through this wall of water. Well, some waited patiently, others were getting irritated by nature messing up their hurried day. And then this little girl's voice rang out, "Mom, let's run for the rain." "What?" her mom said. "Let's run for the rain," she repeated. "No, and we'll wait until it slows down a bit." This young child waited about another minute and repeated, "Mom, let's run through the rain." "We'll get soaked if we do," her mom replied. "No, we won't, Mom. That's not what you said this morning." The young girl, she declared as she tugged at her mom's arm. "This morning," said her mom. "When did I say we could run through the rain and not get wet?" Well, don't you remember when you were talking to Dad and about his cancer, you said, if God can get us through this, God can get us through anything. With the entire crowd, they stopped dead silent. And all that could be heard was the rain. No one came or left in the next few minutes. The little girl's mother paused and thought for a moment about what she might say. Now, some would laugh it off, scold her for being silly. Some might even ignore what was said, but this was a moment for priorities. You know what? You are absolutely right, honey. Let's run through the rain. And if God lets us get wet, well, maybe we just needed some washing off. And so off they ran. And everyone stood watching, smiling and laughing as the two darted past the cars and through the puddles, and they got soaked. But they were followed by a few who screamed and laughed like children all the way to their cars, each of whom needed a good washing off too. Sometimes we have to simply wash away the dust and the grime accumulated over the years of misprioritization, so that once again our souls can shine as they were meant to. No matter how tarnished the silver, no matter how grimy the glass, we can always polish, we can always refresh it. And to maintain it, all we need to do is order our priorities in the right way. They will nurture the vessel of our soul. Ecclesiastes also said, to everything there is a season, a purpose under heaven. Or maybe this is our season to go run in the rain. So let's try this. Just for this evening, if we have kids who have yet to take their bath, let them splash in the tub and don't get angry. And just for tomorrow morning, let's all of us leave any remaining dishes in the sink. Let's miss our favorite TV shows. Actually, for tonight, let's leave any remaining dishes in the sink. Miss our favorite TV shows. And let's sit outside and drink in the aroma of an earth kissed by new rain. And let's count all the stars above. And just for this evening, let's hold each other in our arms and tell each other we are the luckiest person to have the person we are holding in our lives. And just for tomorrow morning, let's smile when we see our loved ones' faces. And if we should feel like crying, let's laugh. Just for tomorrow morning, let's let our children choose what they want to wear. And let's smile and let us say how perfect it is. Just for tomorrow afternoon, let's turn off the phone and the computer between services and sit with each other and affirm the love that brought us together. Just for tomorrow afternoon, let's not yell, even once. And just for tomorrow evening, when we kiss each other goodnight, let's hold on a little tighter, a little longer. And let us thank God for those we love and ask for nothing else except just one more day.